Hello, Saints. We're finishing up chapter 4 of Galatians today, talking about the bond and free. Paul's been moving along the line of our relationship to God, and we're part of the family. We've been adopted in. We're all sons and daughters of God. We're heirs to the kingdom. And that the law that God was talking about fading away at the end of chapter 3 is actually written in our heart. Like again, I said, it's not done away with. Remember, law is not the problem. Sin is. And God had to have another way. Keeping the law wasn't going to bring us back. That wasn't the remedy. The remedy is faith. But that doesn't belittle the law or do away with it. But he needed to find another way. And that is what makes us heirs to the kingdom. We were slaves to the world, but not anymore. So now he's talking about who we are under the law. It says, tell me, in verse 21, chapter 4, you who want to be under law, do you not listen to the law? I mean, are you following everything? Remember earlier in the chapter, in this letter, he tells us that if we're going to commend ourselves to God by law, we got to do it all. We can't not do anything. It reminds me again of that preacher who I heard over 20 years ago there in Michigan. He's preaching. Every now and then I'll look at the 10 Commandments and ask myself, he says, how am I doing? I can tell you how you're doing. Not very good. If we're looking for the wall, looking at the law to kind of get a handle on our piety and our position with God, we're going to fail every time because we don't measure up. However good you might think you're keeping the law. My brother told me back almost 40 years ago, he looked me in the eye and said, you know, Karl, it's not that hard to keep the law. I said, well, good going. He said, I haven't broke 10 Commandments in 6 months. I said, well, good going there, Brian, you just did. Because remember, 1 John chapter 1, verse 8, he who says I have no sin is a liar. There's no truth in him. We are sinners. We missed the mark. That's our pedigree. That's our inheritance from the first Adam, which is why we need the second Adam, Christ. We need a new bloodline, so to speak. Because Adam's bloodline is going to lead to death. So we need a new daddy, and that was Jesus Christ. It's the second Adam. He stands at the head of the human family, and he's the way to life. And that's what we see here. He says, if you want to be under the law, he says, you not listen to the law? It's written, he says, that Abraham had 2 sons. One by the bondwoman, remember, Hagar, Sarah's maidservant, and one by the free woman, which is Sarah herself. But the son of the bondwoman was born according to the flesh. That was the plan they hacked up. Remember, she gets him there and says, look, okay, God's promise is going to be unfolded through you, through the child that comes from your loins. So since I'm barren, Sarah says, let's use my maidservant, Hagar, and you get her pregnant, and the child that comes forth, he'd be the child of promise. They're all trying to do God's plan. God can take care of it himself. He doesn't need you or I interfering with the plan. But this is the second time that they tried to do and fulfill God's promise unilaterally on their own, not with God. I mean, the first time, he's with God, Genesis. And God is there telling him about the promise. And he said, well, maybe my slave, I can make him a son and inherit him all my wealth. And God says, no, that's not the way. It's going to come from your loins. So they keep trying to interfere. We talk about Abraham, Father Abraham, and how perfect he was and how much faith he had. And that's true. But he was still a human being. And he and his wife were coming up with this new plan about how to make a child of promise. And that wasn't the way. So, she ends up, Hagar has this child, but it's not the child of promise. And so, 23, but the son of the bondwoman was born according to the flesh. It was a human idea. And the son of the free woman, Sarah, was through the promise. She's the one who had the promise. Now, this isn't all history. Like I'm saying, this is factually what happened. He's taken these things, this event of the promised child, Isaac, and using it as an allegory. He says this is allegorically speaking, for these 2 women are a picture of 2 covenants. one proceeding from Mount Sinai, bearing children who are to be slaves. She's Hagar. Now, it doesn't downplay Mount Sinai. Some people say that. And it's not that. It's that this is where the law was given. And remember, that was only given temporarily, put in the box. And it was to be the pedagogos to lead them to the fullness of Christ. It wasn't that the law was done away with, but it was put in a different place. Not in a box, but in our hearts. So get the picture right. It wasn't like this was bad, this was evil, they had it all wrong, we got better theology. No, not at all. But these two covenants that they represent, Hagar represented what was coming from Mount Sinai. That's the law. In a sense, bearing children who are to be slaves to the law, not dependent on God. In verse 25, now this Hagar is Mount Sinai in Arabia, and corresponds to the present Jerusalem, the earthly Jerusalem. For she is in slavery with her children. But the Jerusalem above is free. That's the heavenly city. And she is our mother. For it's written, rejoice, barren women who does not bear. Break forth and shout, you who are not in labor. For more numerous are the children of the desolate than of the one who has a husband. So here Hagar had the child, but he is not the child of promise, and his children aren't numerous for God. But yet Sarah, who was barren, had a child, and all her offspring from there, the children that they would have, are much more abundant. So in verse 28, and you, brethren, like Isaac, are children of the promise. He's trying to tell them, you, like Isaac, are the children of the promise. God said to Abraham, your seed will number the sands of the sea, the stars in the heavens. You and I, we're the sand, we're the stars, we're the promise being fulfilled. So he says, like Isaac, you're children of the promise. But as at that time, he who was born according to the flesh persecuted him who was born according to the Spirit, for it is now also. But who says the Scripture says? Oh, I'm sorry, but what does the Scripture say? It says, cast out the bondwoman and her son, for the son of the bondwoman shall be an heir with the son of the free woman. For the son of the bondwoman shall not be an heir with the son of the free woman. It's not a unified thing. So then, brethren, conclusion, we are not children of the bondwoman, but of the free woman. Blessings.